real effectiveness in combat should be always our main goal. When you start to get too distant from that, I think it's a red flag. If people just roll, just train, light training, they're gonna get tough, but not necessarily they're gonna get good. The thing is that the leg locks are part of jiu-jitsu. They're not the whole jiu-jitsu. When I was choking him, I put him to sleep. I remember I put him to sleep, and I don't know why. I still don't know why. But my first instinct was like to get some sand and push it on his face like that. I don't know why.
What do you think about the explosion of leg locks with this whole perspective that you have of wanting to keep jiu-jitsu combat relevant?
Look, I think leg locks are
So,
okay.
I'm joined today by Professor Vinicius Draculino, sixth-degree black belt and about to be promoted to coral belt next month, five-time PANS champion, Nogi Masters world champion, ADCC veteran, former MMA fighter, and an absolute legend in the world of jiu-jitsu. Draculino, it's a pleasure to have you on for this episode. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, guys. It's a pleasure, Lily.
Awesome. So, um, to start things off, I kind of want to take it back to the beginning. When you were a kid, you were obsessed with surfing, living in Rio, and neighbors with the Gracies. Tell me a little bit of a history lesson of your introduction to jiu-jitsu.
I can tell you did the homework.
Absolutely, I did.
Yeah, yeah, that was exactly what you said. Like, funny enough, when I was a little kid, I started in judo, like every Brazilian kid. I mean, Brazilian kids in martial arts, they used to go to judo 100% on like 60s, 70s, and 80s, and I wasn't different. So I started to train judo when I was around 5, 6. And I trained until I got my yellow belt. I don't remember what age I was, but then I moved locations with my mom and dad. We started to live closer to the sea in Baja, and then the surfing bug got into me. I was 10 or 11. I think it was like around like about to be 11 when I started surfing through my uncle. My uncle taught me to surf, and then I was just, oh, that's all I wanted to do. I got like addicted 100%. Then I started to get better in surfing. And through surfing, through my neighborhood, because of surfing, I got to know some of the Gracie family members. They were kind of pretty much almost my neighbors. I mean, it was like 5 minute walk from my house, which was Renzo, Half, Flavia, and Hyan Gracie. And we used to surf on the same spot. We used to hang out and all that. And it was like very common. There was beach fights back in the day. So I started to say Hanzo that was older than me. Hanzo, I think, is like 4 years older than me, or four or five. And man, little small guy, skinny guy, and choking people out. He was like a little monkey behind those giants' back and choking them out. It was like, whoa. So he was like the sheriff of the place, even though he was one of the smallest. It was like, man, I need to learn this jiu-jitsu thing too. Well, of course, we heard about the Gracies and about the fights in the past. My grandfather was a big Carson Gracie fan, like back in the day, and Helio Gracie and Carson Gracie fan. And I went to jiu-jitsu, and then here we are, not just me, but you too,
Absolutely.
living this lifestyle and doing everything on this beautiful art. But my connection to jiu-jitsu came through surfing, not through judo. And funny
That's
enough,
so funny.
after I started jiu-jitsu, and I was already like a black belt in jiu-jitsu, I started to train hard in judo again. And then it
Mm.
was a comeback. Now I'm a brown belt in judo, but who knows? I'm gonna do whatever it takes to be a black belt in judo too. So
That's super, super cool. So, when you started jiu-jitsu, do you remember anything about those first couple classes? And like, what was your feeling when you started? Was it kind of just immediately you fell in love with it?
it was pretty quick. I'm not gonna lie to you. I remember there was my feeling. I was probably 14 when I started jiu-jitsu, 14 or 15. Uh, that I knew on the bottom of my heart that would be something that I would do for the rest of my life. I really didn't know what I would be doing, if I would be teaching or fighting or training or whatever. But I knew jiu-jitsu would be part of my life for sure. And what I have now is that pretty much jiu-jitsu is my life. You know what I mean? So Since the early beginnings, I always knew, and I have that what people call gut feeling, right? So I always got the good gut feeling that jiu-jitsu will be part of me. You take jiu-jitsu out of me, I'm nobody.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty common thing for people. I mean, not everyone, obviously, but for a lot of people that start jujitsu, there's a feeling that it's not just like another hobby. It's not just another form of exercise or,
No,
sport. There's something that's like kind of addictive about it,
yeah.
and you see yourself doing it forever. What do you think it is about jujitsu that captures people like that?
Very good question. There's a lot of theories, right? But I think my theory has to be has to do with you have to have total 100% confidence on your training partners. Actually, the confidence is so high there has to be a confidence. You have to be confident that the person will not take your life away because potentially,
Mm-hmm.
let's not be naive. Jiu-jitsu had the potential to kill somebody, choke on certain like holds and everything. So the fact that you train with somebody and people through a tap motion, tapping or just saying tap, and you know for a fact that this person is gonna let go, this is the ultimate level of confidence. And then at the same time, the person who applies this technique, and when the other taps out, they stop, it actually gives them like a really huge sensation of power. It's like, man, I had this person's life in my hands, but of course I'm not going to take it away, but I could. So it's both spectrums that are so interesting that I think there's always something that gets on the practitioner's mind. It's like, man, like this is I have like a superpower here. You know what I mean? And there are people that have a bigger superpower than me. They're not gonna hurt me because they're my friends, they're my teammates, they're my family, and they're gonna let go as soon as it needs to be let go. And this is huge if you think about it. You know, I don't know you, but I mean, I went to college and studied all my life. I surfed, I played soccer in high level, everything. But my best friends until this day are jiu-jitsu people, 100%. They are
Yeah.
my real best friends. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
have friends from college. I love the guys, law school, really cool from school, from surfing. I still get along really well with like some of my surfing buddies. But the jiu-jitsu people are the ones, right? So I think this all that gives this mystique about jiu-jitsu that is something that, man, like this is like a superpower that actually makes you more human and gets you the best friends you can have. So I mean, what's better than that? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like
Yeah,
the trust that you're talking about is the best way to form really, really strong bonds. And I
exactly.
think everyone who does jujitsu can relate to that. The bonds you
Mhm.
have with your teammates are like nothing else you experience in your
Nothing
life.
else. Exactly. You're 100% right. And I mean, there's other martial arts, of course, and other sports that are awesome. That creates this kind of bond too, and you know, big level of trust and all that. But I think like jujitsu, that human touch of jujitsu, because I mean, jujitsu is very intimate if you think about it. Like I mean, I'm exaggerating, but I'm kind of exaggerating, but not really. I mean,
Hmm.
people, you get drops of wet inside your mouth sometimes. You know what I mean? Like you get like
Unfortunately, I do know
contact,
what you
like
mean.
like direct contact. You know what I mean? Like this is something that is very like close and strong and intimate. You know what I mean? Like, of course, not in like any sexual way. I'm just saying like this is like the real deal. That's the human touch in the highest level. You know what I mean? And this
Hmm.
is very strong. This is very strong, and I think like nowadays that in our society that we're getting more impersonal every single day. There's more talking like that through the phone. It's more like messaging. People are not even talking on the phone too much anymore.
Hmm.
It's text back and forth,
Yeah.
especially younger people like yourself. Like it only text, text,
Hmm.
text, text, text. So I think like whenever they go to jiu-jitsu, it's like this. direct, intimate, human touch thing, that's powerful too. You know what I mean? So I think like in today's society, we're still a bastion of some humanity. Let's put it this way.
Absolutely. I think we're needing it. I agree. We're needing
Yeah.
it more and more with every year that goes by, and every year that technology gets more and more advanced, it gets easier
Hmm.
to connect with people without being face to
Hmm.
face. So I completely agree with you.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So I want to bring it back to you mentioned the Gracie crew. They're kind of
Hmm.
notorious for street fighting, those famous beach fights. Do you have a favorite Gracie street fighting story?
Oh, I mean, if we talk about those times, we'll be talking here for, probably a day. But yeah, but I mean, uh, I think, in my opinion, I mean, I'm kind of being biased, but I think it's one beach fight that I had because I was younger. I was 16, I believe, 15 or 16, but I was already pretty decent in jiu-jitsu. And one of my friends from surfing, his name is Rodrigo. The other day I saw him in Florida. He's living in Florida, and I met him. It was awesome. I didn't see the guy for like literally 35, 40 years.
Wow.
So Rodrigo was surfing in the spot they used to surf in Barra de Tijuca, and an older guy, adult already, not sure what was his age, but he was an adult. He wasn't a kid like us. They have like this thing in surfing that is hard to understand if you're not a surfer, which is like if you cut somebody in front of somebody's wave. I mean, it's a big deal, you know. And this guy was just like cutting this kid like nothing. This kid was getting mad, and then like at one point he complained, and then this guy like slapped him and push him like and give him like put him underwater a little bit and like shut up kid, whatever, blah blah blah. Then he came out. Rodrigo came out crying. I remember Rodrigo was a little younger than me, and he came crying with his board, and he was like, "Man, this guy, like we say in Brazil, caldo. He gave me a caldo. Caldo means when he pushed somebody's head into the water. He gave me a caldo, blah blah blah, and this and that." And we're kind of like, "Man, who's this guy? Who's this guy?" And while we were like this little commotion, the guy is coming out of the sea with his board. He dropped his board and he goes to our group and say like, "Yeah, what's gonna happen now?" And this and that. Shut up, everybody! Bunch of and like cursing words and all that. And then I don't know why, but I mean, I took the front and I say, "Hey, f you," I said to him. And then the guy said, "What?" And then he came. When he came, he threw like a kind of like a sucker punch. And sure enough, like I saw a lot of times, I ducked under, double legged him really hard, like put him on the sand, and then all of a sudden it was coming in Brazil. Like they made like a circle so nobody could interfere, and then all the moms. There was a bunch of people at the beach. It was like kind of embarrassing. But anyway, I took him down, mounted him, punched him a little bit. He turned the back, and I choke him out. And I was choking him, and then there was a lot of people yelling crazy and all that. And then I put him to sleep. I remember I put him to sleep, and he slept, he passed out. And then I don't know, my first, I don't know why, I still don't know why, but my first instinct was like to get some sand and push it on his face like that. I don't know why I did that. And then guess what? When I did that, the guy woke up. And then when the guy woke up, the guy somehow like scrambled and then up on top of me, my guard. So I remember there was holding his head. He was trying to headbutt me, and I was holding. And then all of a sudden, I put my foot on the hip, and I pushed him. And I stood up. And when I stood up, they split. So and then it was a big thing. And then people split, and it was like some other people came. I remember some cops came and all that, but I was a minor. They didn't do anything. But when I was leaving the beach, I remember that this guy's brother came and blindsided punched me. I didn't even see it coming. So it was another bra. Anyway, there was like the more vivid memory that I have with myself. But I mean, I saw several. Actually, the infamous or famous, whatever you call it, beach fight from Hugo Duarte and Hickson Gracie was literally right in front of the apartment that I lived. Right in front. Like you literally like walked 20 meters to cross the street, and then you are at the beach, it was right there,
Wow.
and then like a bunch of other ones. But I mean, this was on the Wild West times, like nowadays you don't see this much anymore because people are shooting and people are actually more conscious about things. But I mean, it was a phase, and actually it was a needed phase, honestly. I think it was needed what happened because jiu-jitsu had to put its mark on being efficient, especially in Rio. Rio is a fight town, everybody knows. Rio is still a intense and violent town. Back in the 70s, 80s, and even early 90s, it was more, people would have more honor to do like fights like one-on-one. But now people shoot each other, stab, and it's being a little crazy. But I mean, like, this is one of the very, very many that happened back in the day.
Wow, that sounds like such a crazy time. So when this happened, you'd already been training jiu-jitsu for a year or two?
Yeah, I was training not for a long time. I was training for a little time. Of course, me practicing judo before, it helped me. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Hmm.
I mean, it helped me. I remember that we actually played a little bit with some of my friends from surfing. There was some judoka, so we played a little bit before I started like jujitsu again. But it was nothing formal. It was just kids being kids and playing around. I mean, they borrow me a gi and whatever. But that gave me a little bit of an advantage to be a little bit ahead of the curve to learn jiu-jitsu, especially on the stand-up part, on the base part, and all that. But yeah, I just had a little bit. Jiu-jitsu very effective. I mean, you don't need to, if you train seriously, you don't need to train for too long to hold your own in a fight. You know what I mean? Like in a
Hmm.
one-on-one fight. So that's what
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah, especially against someone that's untrained. So I wanted
Exactly.
to ask you, when you first started, the kind of jiu-jitsu that you were learning, what were kind of the focuses of it back in the day? Was it more kind of self-defense? Was it more kind of like combat relevant, like it would work in a real fight? What were kind of the focuses of the jiu-jitsu that you were learning when you first started?
Look, let me tell you. Let me start by saying this. I'm a blessed person, a blessed guy to have learned a complete system of jiu-jitsu since day one. Gracie Barra, as you know very well, is an organization that still holds that in a very high standard. We train self-defense, especially the fundamental programs, pretty much 50% almost self-defense. We train takedowns and throws. We train gi. We train no gi. We learn the philosophy. So that was the jiu-jitsu that I always learned. I remember one thing that was a little different back when I started is that I remember that the beginning of the classes, almost actually kind of part of the warm up, we used to do self defense drills. Used to do a lot of like the parry the punch, slip the punch to double leg. Used to do headlock standing escape number one, headlock number two, guillotine escapes. You used to do like a lot of those moves as kind of like almost like they call now drill. It's kind of like a drill, but on self defense. You used to do this every on the beginning of every class. I remember also something that was really cool that on Fridays, at least on the original Gracie Academy that I trained at, used to do no gi and boxing on Fridays. So there was like like very interesting days, like people getting knocked out and learning how to fight. Some people really good with the gi, but they're terrible in fighting. And then like they came there to be better on this. So there was like a lot of the combat aspect on that. And I believe it's because the main reasons because there were not many tournaments back in the day. I mean, when I was a blue belt, honestly, there was maybe two or three big tournaments and a couple of small tournaments. Nowadays, like I live in Houston, Texas, right? It's almost impossible here to have a weekend without a jiu-jitsu tournament. It's every weekend with this bunch of organizations and bunch of different rule sets, and some are gi, some are no gi, some are, but it wasn't the case back then. You know what I mean? I remember some of us used to go for judo competitions to kind of be in competition shape. So the training was about real combat, real life stuff, self defense. We train to be ready, not to look for fights, but to be ready if the fights came our way. You know what I mean? And I think with the evolution of the sport and the professionalism and the number of tournaments, you see that the street fights started to get less and less. You know what I mean? Because I think like the kids needed like something to to get the energy out. You know, and now like nowadays you see like tournaments every weekend. A lot of people are doing professional MMA and doing a lot of money. So why people gonna fight in the streets? It's like a stupid thing to do. You know what I mean? But answering your question, I can see that back in the day it was kind of more combat oriented jiu-jitsu than nowadays, especially some certain schools, thank God not Gracie Barra, that 100% neglect the self-defense and the real combat aspect. They just do uh, competition 100%. And I mean, they do whatever they want to do, that's fine. But for me, this is kind of like a way to almost slap in the face of the art, you know, because our art was based in real efficiency, in real combat. You know, so
Mhm.
I know that things change and things evolve, but I'm a firm believer that you need to learn the complete system of jiu-jitsu, not just a little part of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I actually did an interview with one of your friends, Robert Drysdale, and he
Oh
told
yeah,
me he's amazing. He told me a lot about the
amazing.
history of jiu-jitsu and how, back in the day it was a lot more combat oriented and not
Hmm.
necessarily tailored towards sport jiu-jitsu. And one thing he mentioned is that back in the day, I'm not sure if this was widespread across gyms, but some gyms would do kind of like open hand slaps during jiu-jitsu
All the
sparring.
time, taparia. That was the Friday training I told you about.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, the Friday training was sometimes with boxing gloves. Sometimes you used to do just boxing between each other. Sometimes you used to do one person with glove and the other needed to take the other person down and control. We call this training bloqueio. And sometimes we had the taparia. The taparia was like open slaps, kicks, and grappling and jiu-jitsu. You know, that was the Friday training for us.
Wow. Wow.
And
And
very
so,
important, let me tell you, very important kind of training. Very important.
yeah, absolutely. So the other days of the week, did you have that kind of in your mind when you were training, like keeping the jujitsu that you were practicing effective so that it would work on Fridays?
I learned one thing from my all my professors and masters that every move that they would teach, even like totally gi moves, competition style moves, had to have some sort of adaptation to a real scenario. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So, of course, the move were not going to be exactly the same, but they always told me that if there's a move in sport jiu-jitsu that is completely useless for a real situation, they wouldn't care about teaching it.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep that in mind sometimes. I know that if you want to be on the competition edge, you need to learn a bunch of things that really it's very hard to have an application in a street fight. But for example, if you're very well versed in jiu-jitsu, you can make it happen pretty good adaptations for things that people see from outside. Say, man, this will never work in a fight. If you do the right adaptation, it can work in a fight. You know what I mean? Like a butterfly guard, even half guard. I saw Nogueira, Antonio Nogueira, Minotauro, actually using deep half guard in Pride championships really well. He actually applied this to a bunch of people. He was like so good in hiding the face underneath the guy that the person was start when they started to try to punch or whatever, he would sweep them and get on top. So I mean, who would say that deep half guard would be something effective for a real fight? And then Nogueira
Mm-hmm.
just showed butterfly guy guard. I saw like Murilo Bustamante and Renzo Gracie being successful sweeping people in Vale Tudo fights, not even MMA, Vale Tudo fights, no gloves. You know what I mean? So if there is always a kind of adaptation that can be applied, most of the time, of course, and that is something that I carry with me until today. Even though I have to keep my eyes open to be, how can I say, to be updated with the new techniques, I always carry this with me. I don't really care too much about techniques that have zero chance on being adaptable to a real scenario. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? I really don't really care about these techniques, even though I need to study them and learn. There's all this reverse lapels, and there's more than lapel stuff here.
Yeah.
Like I need to actually be aware of that, but I mean, it doesn't bring me appetite, honestly. So I agree with Robert. I mean, we talk a lot, and actually in his last two books I was honored to be featuring in a bunch of parts
Hmm.
of the groups as I interview with me, and then on the book that he has all the pictures and images, there's a lot of things about myself, so it's pretty cool. And thank you, Robert. By the way, your books are amazing. I read all his books. He's doing a great job on trying to be a historian of jiu-jitsu and trying not to be biased to anything. So like Robert, thank you for everything you're doing for the art. It's amazing what you're doing. But I agree with him. I think that the combat should be always, real effectiveness in combat should be always our main, how can I say, goal.
Hmm.
When you start to get too distant from that, I think it's a red flag. You know
Right.
what I mean? I think it's a big red flag. I think we should never uh, lose our efficiency, in a real fight. Because jiu-jitsu well applied in a real fight, in a one-on-one fight, is still amazing. If somebody doesn't know any jiu-jitsu, it's very hard to be defeated. For a jiu-jitsu guy to be defeated. But I'm a little worried about how things are kind of going at the moment. I mean, I heard the other day that there was this guy. I'm not gonna say names, but he trains in a very well-known jiu-jitsu academy, one of the best in the world, led by world champions. But this school is like 100% competition jiu-jitsu, 100%. I mean, they don't believe in self-defense. The guys never fought in a ring or MMA, never fought in the streets. They think jiu-jitsu is that, and that's what they tell their students. And then one of the students went to train in a different town. And then the day that the student was there, they was having a taparia training, actually. A training with the slaps and on going to the ground with strikes. And then they said that this guy came to train. He goes like, but look, I thought you guys were a jiu-jitsu school. This is not jiu-jitsu. That's what this student of this other school told my friend, who's the owner of this school. This is not jiu-jitsu. So look at the level that we came. The
Hmm.
guy doesn't even know that training jiu-jitsu involving striking. He thinks jiu-jitsu is that lapel training only, like do the points and hold. This is all good. I'm a competitor. I was always a competitor all my life, and I still coach thousands, hundreds of competitors in all levels. I'm a competition guy, but that's not the only part of jiu-jitsu, guys. Come on. And don't try to sell people that the real jiu-jitsu is what you tell people that is the real jiu-jitsu is very big. So, I mean, that's my 2 cents on this combat thing.
Yeah, that's super interesting to hear your perspective. One thing that comes to mind for me, and I think will come to mind for a lot of the audience members, is the whole leg lock thing. We've seen
Mhm.
leg locks explode. We've seen them actually been used with varying levels of success in MMA as well. What do you think about the explosion of leg locks with this whole perspective that you have of wanting to keep jiu-jitsu combat relevant?
Look, I think leg locks are a very important part of jiu-jitsu. Leg locks are effective, don't get me wrong. They are dangerous. And I mean, speaking for myself, I used leg locks throughout my career as a fighter and as a competitor successfully. And I have students of mine that are some of the best in the business in leg locks. So I think leg locks are effective, need to be studied, need to be applied. But the thing is that the leg locks are part of jiu-jitsu. They're not the whole jiu-jitsu. What I see
Hmm.
now that people are actually building schools and building systems of jiu-jitsu that are 100% based in leg locks. And I don't agree with that. I mean, you can be great in leg locks, but you need to understand that jiu-jitsu is way more than leg locks. You know what I mean? I actually didn't submit, but my last MMA fight in Strike Force, I applied a heel hook on the guy in a fight, and I didn't get even punched in the face because I applied in a situation. I actually popped the guy's knee, but the guy didn't tap. Very big warrior, the guy, because I mean, I got him in a heel hook. I went for a shot for a takedown. He sprawled, so I sat in a butterfly, went straight to a heel hook. He spun to get out, which is the right defense that he had to do at the time, but he got stuck in the cage and was like, like was like cranking, but the guy didn't tap because I mean it's a fight, adrenaline and all that. But I got on top and I put some good strikes into that. So I'm 100% in favor of leg lock training and everything. But again, like what I see is that number one that I just told you, like build a whole school or system owning leg locks, I think it's dumb, honestly, because your students will suffer. Because if they don't get leg locks, or if they get people who defend really well leg locks, they're done because they don't have volume or substance on their game. They don't know how to keep a guard retention. They don't know how to take down or to be tight on passing the guard or to have good defense or to get the back well or to choke whatever. So and another thing, this is one thing, and the other thing I saw like a couple of events lately, and it was like a lot of people just spinning under and trying to get leg locks all the time, and it was like a big kind of like a two Tasmanian devils all over the place. And I don't blame the guys because the rules made them do this game. So I blame zero the competitors that are doing that. It's not their problem, it's the rules problem. Oh, there's no points, it's whatever. So, and then when people start to do that, oh, submission only or whatever, cool, submission is the goal, yeah. But there's a big part of jiu-jitsu. Actually, Robert Drysdale agrees with me 100% on that. We talked about that. Positioning, it can be sometimes in certain situations more important than submission. You have a good positioning. If you are in a situation of a street fight that, like depending on the situation, a tight bar, if you don't have good position or good skills on having the understanding of hierarchy of position, you're going to be trying to do leg locks in a bar, being on
Mm-hmm.
the bottom, spinning all the time. No. You're going to try to do flashy submissions? No. You're going to do the good old rice and beans of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. Clinch or keep your distance. Control the person in a tight clinch. If you get on top of them, get a good position to really beat them up and not allow them to beat you back. So Jiu-Jitsu is so big that I think that my other thing is that, okay, leg locks are important and all that, but I mean, not giving importance to good positioning and improvement and hierarchy of positions in any rule set, it's dumb, in my opinion, because they're really important. If you talk about combat, if you talk about, I'm going to turn on the lights here, but if you talk about combat, if you talk about being like effective in combat, and you neglect good positioning in jiu-jitsu, you're being 100% hypocritical. You know what I mean, in my opinion. So I think like these events are great. But what I saw, like I told you about this all the spinning thing and the only leg locks and only trying, and then people not trying to get on top to get good position to pass a guard to. Of course, there are exceptions. There were like kids, for example, like that kid Tackett, forgot his first name. Man, he got one of those other kids. There was an exceptional leg locker, and then one of those ninjas that do like boogie choke and do all that. Man, Tackett got him, took him down, passed his guard, mounted him, got his back, and choked him out. Simple. Because he put
Mm-hmm.
so much volume and so much in a good way that the other kid didn't have an answer. You know what I mean? So I believe that every single rule set has to always give value to positioning as well. It's a big deal if you mount somebody. It's a huge deal if you get somebody's back. It's a huge deal if you pass somebody's guard and put the knee on belly. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
what I feel like to, I talked a lot about, you talk about leg locks, and I kind of like went out of the contest. But I mean, like, my opinion is that leg locks are important, but not all jiu-jitsu. They are an important part of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And this is something that I've talked about with Robert Drysdale as well, about the whole rule set thing and how rule sets shape the way we practice jujitsu.
Yeah.
Even the first rule set was designed, to reward positions that would be dominant in a fight. And when you're
Mm-hmm.
mounted, you can punch your
Yeah.
opponent, they can't punch you back. So that's a position that should be rewarded. And we've
Mm-hmm.
seen countless variations of jiu-jitsu rule sets. We've seen kind of on the other extreme submission only rule sets. So my question for you is what kind of rule set do you think elicits the kind of jiu-jitsu that you believe in?
Well, the bad news is that there's no perfect rule set. It's never going to
Hmm.
happen. And there's another thing too. I think Robert said that too, Robert Drysdale. Competitors always find a way. Depending
Hmm.
on the rule set, they always find a way to make things in their favor that are not what the rules were intending to happen. That's a
Hmm.
fact. You know what I mean? So my opinion that, with that said, that there's no perfect rule and it's never going to happen. I think you should stick to official rules. I think there's one thing that happens in jiu-jitsu that I actually don't agree. It's like 300 different events, 300 different rules. It's very hard for us to focus as a coach or as a student with all these different rule sets that you have. You know what I mean? So I think we should actually come to terms that we should have one gold standard rule set for gi and another for no gi. Period. Will that be perfect? No, never gonna be. But that's the rule set. You don't see events, for example, boxing events in one organization, different rule sets than the other. It doesn't happen. Same thing with wrestling, same thing with judo, same thing with everything else. But in jiu-jitsu, that still happens. You
Hmm.
know, so I believe we have to come into terms that that's the official rule. So, for example, okay, the the most prestigious, important gi tournament in the world is the Worlds, right? IBJJF rules. A bunch of things that I would change in the rules on the IBJJF, but a bunch of good things too. But doesn't matter. That's the rule. That's the standard rule. Train for that rule and win on that rule. You will be the official world champion only if we win that tournament. And then let's talk about ADCC on the other spectrum of the no-gi. ADCC rules. I would change also a couple of things on the ADCC rules. But if you want to be a submission grappling world champion, you need to win the ADCC. And the rules of the ADCC are that: find a way, buddy.
Hmm.
Train on those rules and find a way to win on those rules because that's the official rules. You know what I mean? So I think like events should actually stop this. Oh, I do my own rules, and that's also like a big part of why the sport doesn't grow as much on the competition arena is the lack of unity on the rules. So that's my 2 cents on that. I would just, knowing that's never going to be perfect, I would put gi IBJJF and I'll put no gi ADCC, and that's it.
Yeah, yeah, as you mentioned, we've seen a lot of growth in jiu-jitsu, but we're obviously now kind of running up against the problem of there being too many rule sets. And, in any other sport, you can look up, like the top five or top 10 athletes in the sport, and it's very easy for people to make those lists because they're competing in the same organization, the same rule sets. And
Hmm.
people try to do that with jiu-jitsu, but it's quite complicated. Some people might be better at sub-only rule sets. Some people might be
Hmm.
better where there's points. So it's really difficult to make a ranking system that everyone's going to agree with and that actually makes
Yeah.
sense. So I think that that's
Hmm.
another thing that's kind of holding us back from growing even more and making
Yeah.
more professionalism and more money.
I agree 100%. I don't see why we shouldn't have, for example, events submission only. I think it's fine, but I mean that shouldn't define. if the person is a world champion in the sport. They can be
Mm-hmm.
awesome, the best sub only person in the world. But the champions of the sport are IBJJF, world champions, adults, black belts with the gi, and world champions in submission grappling are the ADCC champions. They can be champions in a bunch of other organizations. That's awesome. That's very hard to be done in CGI, right? CJI, Craig Jones Invitational, in the Eddie Bravo event, Who's Number One. It's a bunch of awesome, the UFC BJJ now, awesome. They are awesome events. BJJ Stars in Brazil, all amazing, great events that are paying people well. And that's awesome. But let's talk about the real champions of the sport. Like we have the boxing world champion, the wrestling Olympic champion, the judo world champion, and Olympic champion. The champions of the sport, my humble opinion, should be those two that I told you about,
Mm-hmm.
IBJJF and ADCC. They are the biggest organizations, like it or not. There's a lot of flaws on them. Yeah, of course, like everything. But the sports champion, that's what I'm saying. Like the World Cup soccer champion is just one on that
Mm-hmm.
rule set. But the other events, please keep happening. Please keep doing this because I mean, there's entertainment for everybody, more money for everybody. But I don't think like somebody who's not a champion on those two big events can say they are world champions. The world champions are
Yeah.
just very few that can say that.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that one. Actually, before we move on, I wanted to check in with you how much time you have left today. I usually ask at the beginning, but I forgot.
Yes, I actually need to leave. It's 5 o'clock here, right? What time is it now? My
5:42?
5:40. I could go maximum 6:15 here. Is that okay?
Okay. Yes, that's perfect.
Cool. Yeah, six
Perfect.
fifteen because
Mm.
6:30 I have to go and teach class.
Okay, okay. I figured you might have a night class, so
Yeah,
just wanted to
yeah.
check in with that. So,
Mhm.
I want to move on a little bit and talk to you about the spider guard. So, there's a lot of people talking about the origins of the spider guard. Some people thought that you invented it, but you mentioned on a podcast that it was
Yeah.
actually Renzo Gracie that invented it, and that you took what you saw him using and turned it into your own thing. So, tell us a little bit about how you discovered or how you saw the value in the spider guard and then started
Mhm.
developing it for yourself.
Look, again, I'm glad that you said that. I didn't invent Spider Guard at all, and I never said that. Uh, my story with Spider Guard was watching inside the gym Renzo Gracie doing it with bigger people, and he was doing really well on like surviving and avoiding people to pass his guard, especially bigger people. So I thought it was awesome because I was always a small guy too. So I said, like, man, this is genius. They're gonna try to play with that. Later on, they said that Spider God is being seen videos from Japan since the 60s or whatever. So Kosen Judo was doing that. But I had no idea. I never saw any videos, especially back in the day. There was no internet, there was nothing. I'm just saying what happened to me. I saw Hansel doing it at the school, at the Gracie Academy in Baja, and I started to play with that. And I mean, it fit really well to my game, really, really well. So I remember that was one of the first, especially on my belt and division, to do it like a lot and successfully. I remember especially I did a lot on the blue belt, but more on the purple belt. The purple belt, my spider guy was like very, very good. Like I actually got the click on that. So I actually got a little addicted. So it wasn't even good, honestly. But for my overall game. But I remember that as one of the first ones back in the day to be a little more offensive with that instead of just being like on a more like on the retention side of it, on defending and avoiding people to pass. I started to do like a lot of that combo, the basic combo, the sweep to mount or the triangle. The sweep to mount to the triangle, the person postures on bar. So I started to do like a omoplata, like extend, and then I used to do a lot of that around the world sweep too. So people would kind of like try to go to the side and put the knee on belly, but I have the still the one spider hook, and then I sweep them and get on top. So I was really really successful in this game that nowadays is actually considered an old school game. So my thing with the spider guard was that, and then I remember that I started to see a lot of people. I'm not saying it was because of me, it's just a natural evolution of the sport, and I started to see more and more people doing in competition. It's funny, but I actually got a little bit of hate to my side because of the spider guard, because people would say like, man, what an ugly game, keep holding on the sleeves like you scared, the guard has to be close guard or with the hand on the collar. I remember that people were saying that. I remember that I got like a little bit of hate per se
That's
on
crazy.
the spider. Yeah, I got like a lot, and people would say like, "Oh, Draculino, take his spider guard, he's nothing." That was this little small talk. I remember that back in the day. But I mean, you see that how it developed now, right? I mean, like spider guard is like considered an old school guard, you know.
Hmm.
And there's so many variations. And one of my students, Cristiano Chichi, that actually also Romulo Barral, they actually made their spider guard a little different with the hand on the collar. Instead of having two hands on the sleeves, they put one hand on the collar, which is awesome too, because the posture is always broken and all that. So I mean, there was like a bunch of people that evolved the spider guard in a way that nowadays is like it's funny. This is considered a basic old school guard, you know. But I mean, I love the spider guard still this day. I think it's a very intelligent way to do guard, defensive and offensive. And just today I trained and I did a bunch of spoiler guard. Just today, like early in the morning. It's gonna be something that is gonna be part of me. Hopefully, to the day I die.
That's so cool. I love how the development of techniques in jiu-jitsu is often, when you look back on the history, it's often a community effort. Everyone adds
Yeah,
their
yeah,
own
of
thing,
course.
adds a different variation. I think that's one of the coolest things about jiu-jitsu. So when you're
Yeah,
teaching,
100%.
yeah, so when you're teaching Spider Guard, obviously you are a super successful coach. So when you're teaching Spider Guard, what are some of the most common mistakes that you see people making, or just kind of common misunderstandings about the Spider Guard that you see in people?
Uh, what I think is that like the development that he should have in Spider God should be a really good retention first, then really good defense, and then finally the attacks. I'm seeing people trying to go for attacks, but they have zero understanding on how to keep the guard, how to actually move your hips and have your legs kind of like a windshield wiper in the way that you're always following the person. So the person gets frustrated because you're always in front of them, no matter where they go. You know what I mean? And then if they actually are not in front of you, it's actually a bait from you to sweep them. You know what I mean? So I think the biggest problem that people have is that like nowadays world that everything is fast, everything has to be quick learning, quick rewarding, quick prizes, and all that. People try to go to the cool, fancy stuff, but they don't know the fundamentals. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
They skip the most important thing, which is the baseline to be able to do all this cool ninja stuff. So I think the biggest problem is people neglect the retention and the defensive part of Spider Guard. Most of the times that you're going to get submissions or even like a successful attacks in the Spider Guard is going to be on counters, you know,
Hmm.
depending on how they're going to try to pass your guard, they expose themselves to a bunch of things. If the person just stopped and kind of like just not doing anything, you need to make the person actually move to create something to make something happen. If they're trying to pass your guard like crazy, those are my favorite. I love those guys. Those crazy guys that try to pass like they get frustrated. Those are always the easiest ones, because they're always going to make a mistake and give me something, so
Hmm.
I think it's more like a counter attack guard. But if I would say that people should not neglect the defensive and retention part of that.
Yeah, that's really important, building it up from the ground up. And I think a common
Hmm.
mistake is that most people learn spider guard with the attacks first and don't build up
Yeah,
that baseline.
100%. I mean, like, I think maintenance of the guard, of the spider guard, should be the very first thing that people should learn. It's not
Hmm.
even zero attacks. Don't even show attacks yet. It's just like how to keep the guard, how to make sure
Hmm.
that you don't lose the guard, how to make sure that you're always in front of the person, following them by using hip and leg dexterity. I think this is the baseline for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, as a coach, what are some of the most important concepts that you try to instill in newer students? Obviously, with the foundations, even kind of narrowing it, even going a bit deeper than that, like in terms of
Hmm.
concepts of like base, balance, what kind of things come to mind for you?
Look, I think like base and posture are a very important foundation of everything that you're going to be using to the rest of your life. A person who doesn't have a good base or good posture, forget it. You're not going to be ever a really top tier jiu-jitsu practitioner. But I think like honestly, one of the most neglected, and it's kind of like the same thing I told about the spider guard. It's a good example. I think the first thing you should develop in jiu-jitsu when you start to learn, the first more important concepts are defensive concepts. You need to
Mhm.
make sure that your progression in jiu-jitsu is like that. Look, you start and everybody crushes you. It's normal, right? It happens to all of us. It's okay. Little by little should be harder for people to crush you. When I say crush, to tap you out several times. So if
Mhm.
you get tapped out 5 times in a 5 minute roll, and if the next roll you got tapped out 3 times, that's an improvement. So that's how the learning curve should be. I always believe that you first develop defensive skills, then you start to develop positional skills, such as when you mount somebody, it's getting harder and harder for them to come out of your mount. When you side control somebody, people get like, oh, like on that claustrophobic sensation that they're being held there and they can't escape. So defense, positioning, and finally, and then after submissions. This is what I think it should be the learning curve of every jiu-jitsu practitioner. For example, what I just said, what is the biggest example as a jiu-jitsu practitioner of what I just said? Roger Gracie. Look at him. Roger has impeccable, phenomenal defense. When he gets in positions on you, forget it. You're not coming out. If he mounts you, you're dead. If he gets your back, you're dead. If he passes your guard, most likely you're dead. And then the submissions happen. He doesn't do any flashy ninja submissions. His submissions are a natural progression of his impeccable game on the defensive side and on the positional side. So I think like if you see a student, let's say you have a really athletic student that really quickly he starts to submit other people using his athleticism. But then like when you see that every time that he gets side mounted or mounted or on the back, he taps really quick. This guy will have a big problem to solve throughout the years. Big problem. And trust me, I see this happening. There are still like some of the top jiu-jitsu players in the world, not just now, but throughout history, that are super aggressive, very successful on attacks. They're awesome, but the defense is really bad. So you see them submitting a lot of people, but they get submitted a lot.
Mhm.
It's very like hard to see a person like Roger or many others like Hoyler, like Buchecha, like Romulo Barral. Like these guys, they almost never get submitted. They may lose, but they don't get submitted. Xande Ribeiro, many examples. So then you see how important that is. If you submit a lot of people, but you get submitted a lot, that means that you're kind of like a what, like a wild, crazy, like cowboy,
Mhm.
shooting people like crazy, but getting shot like crazy. You know what I mean? Like you're not a sniper. And
Yeah,
that's the way it should be, you know?
absolutely. Yeah. How do you help people work through that challenge? I think it's a challenge that a lot of people encounter when they start jujitsu, especially those that are athletically gifted. It's super hard
Mhm.
for them to pull back on using their strength and their athleticism and instead focus on the technique and the actual, you know, doing jujitsu techniques. How do you help people
Mhm.
work through that?
Look, very simple, specific training. That's the best way. Every single class I teach, fundamental or advanced or no gi or professional, doesn't matter. We have specific training, attack and defense. If people just roll, just train, light training, they're going to get tough. They're going to get tough for sure, but not necessarily they're going to get good. That's different between being tough and good. So, specific training is to make you be a good practitioner. Great attacks, great positioning, but also great defense escapes. Because on a specific training, you have no choice. They're going to start on your back. They're going to start on the mount. They're going to start in side control. They're going to start with knee on belly. And you have to deal with that. So it's a pure defensive skill. So you're going to be obligated to work on this skill. So I think the best thing for you to be well versed in all that is specific training every day. To be honest with you, I think on the beginning of a person's journey in jiu-jitsu, the specific training is more important than the free rolling. I really believe that 100%.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I totally agree
Mhm.
with you, especially when I started, being one of the smaller people in my gym. As soon as we go to free rolls, there's nothing I can do,
Yeah,
especially
yeah,
like the first couple months, like it was just I was so out of my depth. But in positional sparring, I felt like I know where I'm headed to. I know what my goal is.
exactly.
And and also with positional sparring, being someone who is less strong and less physically overpowering, you can get a better idea of how to play on top as well. So I think it's
Exactly.
super, super important for beginners.
It's a win-win. You know what I mean? Like there will be days it will be terrible because, for example, imagine you or me, that we're smaller, doing specific training from mount position with Roger Gracie. That will suck, you know, but that will
Yeah.
be really good for us, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it will be very educational per se. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? So I think that's answering to your question again. You want to be more well versed, specific situation of sparring, but
Absolutely.
do it correctly and do it even when you don't feel like doing it. That's when you really get better,
Yes,
right?
absolutely. That's really good advice. And there's a couple other kind of common challenges that I feel like almost every jiu-jitsu practitioner faces in their journey that I want to ask you about. One of which is
Mhm.
something that I'm actually struggling with at the moment, and that's
Uh-huh.
about building your own game. Because, when you
Mhm.
start jiu-jitsu, you're taught a lot of different things, and some of them might work for you, some of them might not. What kind of advice do you have for those that are wanting to put together those techniques into a game that works cohesively and makes sense to them and fits for their body type and their strengths?
Well, your problem that you're facing now is the problem of every jiu-jitsu practitioner eventually, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty much what I say, find your identity in the game of jiu-jitsu. I call the game of jiu-jitsu. What is going to be your two-goal game when push comes to shove? You know what I mean? Of course, this requires time because you have to experiment, especially in the beginning of your journey. You learn a lot of different things. You learn like it's overwhelming about all the information that you have. Like jiu-jitsu is infinite. There's always something new happening every single day. But one thing I've been observing with all these years is that your A game, your main game, that per se, will depend a lot of like your body type also.
Mm-hmm.
Like if, let me put it this way. So let's say you have like a guy and he is 195 pounds, but he's 5'2" with short legs. Imagine this kind of guy. Even if he trains all his life, he will never, ever be a guy who will have like a superb retention classical guard game. It's not going to
Mm-hmm.
happen. He can do the techniques and know what's going on. That's all good. But it's a waste of time for a guy like that to actually insist on having like a super classical, flexible, inverted, retentional kind of like a guard game, for example. This guy most likely will have like a half guard or a butterfly guard that can be superb. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of things that our body type will dictate the next necessity of how our main game will be. And then on the other spectrum, you got a guy who is like 6'5", long legs, long arms. Like most likely this guy will have the opposite. He will have like like almost impossible guard to pass with great retention skills, getting everybody in the triangle and sweeping people like crazy. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of like that the body type has a lot to do on how your main game will be. You know, and also there's also another factor. There's the factor also of effectiveness, I would say. So, for example, let's say you've been training and you've been trying really hard to get like the lasso and sweep people from the lasso. But then you're trying, but it's not really working really well. But every single training you're doing like the sit up sweep from the butterfly guard in everybody. This tells you what? That maybe the butterfly guard is something that fits well to your game and it will always work regardless anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that already will tell that this should be maybe part of your main game. Not saying that you're never going to do lasso. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that when push comes to shove, you know that, man, like, if somebody gives me, I'm going to sweep anybody from my butterfly guard here. It's going to happen. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
oh man, I'm been working a lot on submitting people from the mount, but I'm getting reversed all the time. I don't know, I'm too light or too small, or not putting the weight correctly. But you're trying, you should. But at the same token, you're submitting everybody from the back. You get the back, it's over. So
Mm-hmm.
this will be part of your main game too. So you know when push comes to shove, if you get somebody's back, man, I'm confident, I'm good there. It's not. I'm not saying that you don't know anything about mount. It's just natural that eventually, throughout time, you're gonna find those things. Your two go moves. I would say everybody has two go moves. I don't believe anybody's perfect in every sense of jujitsu. It doesn't happen. Everybody has like better things and not so great things you know and so if I would name the two main reasons, I would say body type and the efficiency, what you make happen regardless of situation. Those are the two
Yeah.
main factors.
That's really, really good advice. Another problem that I think sometimes is related to this, but sometimes not, but I think everyone also experiences is um, coming across or having times where you're not really feeling like you're developing and you kind of hit a plateau. I think
Mhm.
everyone's felt that many,
Oh
many
yeah.
times.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. And
What
even
advice
worse,
do you
sometimes
have?
people think they're getting worse.
I feel
Yeah.
that sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, it's normal.
Yeah, so what advice do you have for what to focus on and how to pull yourself out of that kind of mentality?
I think like when this happens, first of all, you need to understand that this happens to every single person in the world,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like I said, sometimes even happens the worst. It's not like, oh, I hit a plateau. No, I'm just getting worse. You feel like it, right? But this is actually sometimes, most of the times, honestly, this is a false sensation, because if you are sometimes not getting that great in training like you used to be with the certain training partners, that doesn't mean they're not evolving. That means that maybe they're evolving a little faster than you. And that's two different things. It's not that you're getting worse, it's that they're getting better in a faster pace than you for X amount of reasons. They can be they're younger, they have more time to train, they have more natural ability, they learn faster. But most of the people that think that they're not evolving, it's a false sensation. They're just progressing in a smaller pace than some other people that they tend to compare themselves with. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? So I think the best way to deal with that is actually to put your skin on the fire, like we would say. Make sure that even though you know it's not going to be good in the beginning, put yourself in situations that are uncomfortable, but they will challenge you to be better on them, but with
Mm-hmm.
zero pressure. For example, you have a great spider guard. If somebody gets on your spider guard, it's going to be really hard to pass. So try to practice a little bit more of your half guard. Oh, Professor Drac, I hate half guard. Half guard sucks. Who who asked you? Nobody asked you anything. Go ahead and go do something to get better and put well, like you say, your skin on the fire, and try to actually find joy and find that learning process again in something else, because it's going to be end up being better for you anyway. You know what I mean? So every time somebody goes and complains that they're not evolving, I think it's because they're trying to be on their safe, also on their safe game, on their how you call it, on the the comfort zone, on their
Right.
game too much. Try to experiment. I use the half guard example because I used to be the number one hater of half guard. I used to hate half guard. I would think that half guard was like a game for lazy people, you know? And
Right.
it's not true. It's not true. When I was younger, it's like, half guard, whatever. And until the day that I broke my leg. I broke my leg really bad one time that he required me like three surgeries just because of this accident. It was a bad, bad break. I still have a lot of like screws and pins on my leg because of that. So I could not train. I could not put my foot on the ground for more than a month. Like
Wow.
I was in a bed for a month. And when I started to train again, of course I was a little concerned, right? To do like foot on the hip, to do a spider guard pushing. So I said, like, you know what? Let me train this stupid half guard stuff that I don't like it at all. But guess what? Thanks to that injury, my half guard still sucks, but it doesn't suck as much. You know what I mean? So it was
Yeah.
good for me after all. And I found out that the half guard is actually not a lazy person's game. It's a very intelligent game. And it's
Mm-hmm.
a very, very, uh, uh, how can I say, democratic game because almost everybody can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Almost nobody can do an inverted guard. Reverse de la
Yeah.
Riva, the kiss of the dragon going under, that whatever they call like helicopter guard or donkey guard, whatever. Most people cannot do that crap, but half guard, like everybody can do it. And
Yeah.
literally everybody can do it because it doesn't depend a lot of physicality. So it's actually what Elio Gracie always preached:
Mm-hmm.
minimal effort for maximal efficiency. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah, that's my take on the plateau thing. Go explore
Mm-hmm.
like new things, and most of all, it's kind of more like a mental thing. Like, don't put pressure on yourself. You know, try new things. Oh, people are gonna crush me. Who cares? You want to get better when you want to be on a little bubble for the rest of your life. You
Hmm.
know, that's the mindset, I think.
Yeah, and that half guard story is such a great example of how when you're injured, it can actually be an opportunity to, think
100%.
outside the box, try something new. I think that's a really great example for everyone.
Yeah, and like I mean, we can go over like a lot of different examples. I'm talking about myself because I had like literally like more than 10 orthopedic surgeries in my
Oh my
career.
gosh.
You know,
Yeah.
so I remember when I had one on the left shoulder. This was 2015. So it was pretty much 6 months to get better, and 6 weeks with that thing, the brace, whatever thing. And when I started to train, actually my physical therapist is one of my black belts. So he said, "Look, man, you cannot like afford to push, pull, or even to open or get somebody under it. You have to actually leave this arm really stuck and train with one arm only." So I said,
Wow.
"Okay, I can do that." And guess what? My guard retention improved so much, because I was just playing guard with one hand.
Hmm.
So I have to actually get angles and better frames and have like better following of the person. So you end up being awesome thing too. You know,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
good thing about jiu-jitsu is you can always adapt, right? I mean, you can adapt to keep doing and do great things. You know,
Absolutely. Yeah, my coach often makes us do guard retention positional sparring, but with no hands. So it's something that I think is
no
really,
hands
really
even
effective.
better. I did that a
Yeah,
bunch too. No hands is even better. It's just like the no hands, depending on who you go with, it's not even competitive, But I mean, if you do
exactly.
no hands with somebody, that can be a really good idea. I did that before a bunch of times too. If you do no
Hmm.
hand with somebody that you know that you can beat easily, somebody that doesn't have your skill set, that can be a competitive training.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
turns into a
absolutely.
very competitive training.
Yeah, so I won't keep you much longer, but I do have one question, and it's one that we ask everyone. It's one of
Yes.
my favorite questions. So
Uh-huh.
what kind of advice do you have for the next generation of jiu-jitsu practitioners, the ones that are just putting on their white belts now? If you had to give them one piece of advice, what would it be?
Number one, stay out of YouTube. I'm being serious. I'm being
That is
very
good
serious.
advice.
I know it's tough, but I'm being very serious. When you're starting jiu-jitsu, go to a good jiu-jitsu academy. Okay. Trust on your coach. See if you're a good fit there. And then try to focus on whatever you're learning in class. Because that's already by itself a bunch of information. And my number two advice is that when you start, don't think that you know a technique when you first watched it or practiced. You're just being introduced to this technique. There's a totally different ball game. So
Hmm.
stick to the basics, stick to the fundamentals, stay out of YouTube. I think you should only be allowed to go to YouTube when you're a black belt. I'm exaggerating here. I'm exaggerating here. It's kind of like a joke, but seriously, guys, like I think the overload of information for a beginner is the worst thing for your game.
Hmm.
You're going to compare yourself to who you shouldn't be comparing yourself. You should like be access to games that you're not ready to do yet because you don't have the basic knowledge to do so. So it's kind of a joke, but it's kind of true too. Stay out of YouTube and stick to what your academy or your coach or what your professor teaches you, and you're gonna be fine.
Absolutely. That's really great advice. When I was a new white belt, I got a stern talking to by my coach for all the Instagram moves that I was trying. So it's very, very important. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he was like, "Oh gosh, here we go again."
It was the buggy choke when I couldn't escape side control that really got him to sit me down.
You see that? Look,
Yeah.
you see that? You already gave the best example of all.
Hmm.
Oh, coach, teach me the boogie choke. Wait, escape from my side control first here, please.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Professor. It was amazing to have you on for this episode. It was super, super interesting chatting with you about all these different jiu-jitsu topics. I hope one day I can come down to Texas and train at your gym.